Do you know how this piece of paper can be turned into this crane? We have origami to thank for this. Origami is the traditional Japanese art of paper folding that has been around for centuries. I have been practicing origami for many years and learned about its origins, how it evolved, and why it is so popular today for this speech. Let's start with a brief history. According to Wikipedia, the word origami comes from ori, meaning folding, and kami, meaning paper. Put this together and you have folding paper, which is exactly what origami is. Lisa Coe and Vanessa Gold looked into the origins of origami for a PBS documentary called Through the Folds. They found that when paper was invented in China in 105 AD, origami likely came not long after that when monks first brought paper to Japan, in the 6th century. Unlike today, paper was not mass-produced and easily accessible, and so it was largely seen as a luxury and only used in religious ceremonies. It wasn't until 1680 that we got our first evidence of what we now recognize as origami. According to Koshiro Hattori, a board member of the Japan Origami Society, artfully folding paper began after a poem was written by Haru Sakaku. It roughly translates in English to "the butterflies in Rosai's dream would be origami, or folded paper." This inspired people to begin folding the butterflies that they had heard about in the poem. These butterflies are actually still used today in Japan during weddings to wrap around sake bottles as a tradition. Following making these butterflies, people began folding paper in other unique ways and attaching them to gifts like modern-day greeting cards. Now let's look into how origami further evolved into what many people now practice. In the past, origami was known and taught through word of mouth passed down by generations. Now, people create models that are often experts in geometry and design, following strict rules and guidelines. Many even describe it as a puzzle and aim to make it as complicated as possible. The book, The Art of Origami, highlights Akira Yoshizawa, who is considered the pioneer of modern origami. He explained how to do origami with a series of symbols, arrows, diagrams, and even created his own origami language. An example of this is the mountain fold, in which the paper is folded so the crease comes to a point like a mountain, and the opposite, valley fold, where the paper concaves like a valley. This language was invented to simplify instructions for origami. Unlike old styles of paper folding, Unlike old styles of paper folding, people now care how many pieces of paper you use and if you use cuts or glue. It is customary and an unspoken rule of origami to only use one square piece of paper to get your end result. Unlike many modern fads, origami has stayed popular through many centuries. This is largely because of one little girl's story. That girl is Sadako Sasaki. According to the Hiroshima International School, they tell Sadako's story as a girl who lived in Hiroshima, Japan in 1945 when the United States dropped an atomic bomb during World War II. Sadako was 2 years old at the time and initially showed that she had no ill effects from the bomb. It wasn't until she was 11 years old and felt very ill, she went to the doctor to discover that she had leukemia, a type of blood cancer, commonly called bomb disease by the people of Hiroshima. Because of the high levels of radiation in the area, this type of cancer was usually severe and fatal. Sadako desperately did not want this to be her fate, and while she was in treatment, her friend told her about the legend that if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, you will have a wish granted. Sadako began folding cranes, but was only able to make it to 644 cranes before she passed away. She decided halfway through folding her cranes when she was still alive that if she did make it to 1,000, she wouldn't wish for her illness to be cured, but instead for world peace. Her family and friends decided to try and fulfill her wish and customarily fold 1,000 paper cranes every year in honor of her. Peter Chortis wrote an article about how the tradition of folding the cranes exists not only still in Hiroshima, but all across the world. They even erected a statue in Sadako's honor and wrote many books about her story that many people and children now read to keep the art of origami alive. Whether you view origami as just paper, an art form, or something fun to do, I hope you all learned something today about its origins, how it evolved and why it is such a popular craft all around the world. And remember, if you ever need a wish granted, try folding 1,000 paper cranes and it just might come true.